Before we begin, let me ask you something. Imagine you are sitting in a fancy Parisian hotel room. The year is 1925. The air smells of cigarette smoke and expensive cologne. Across the table sits a well-dressed man. He slides a document toward you. It has an official stamp, a red wax seal. He says, "The government is selling the Eiffel Tower. I can make sure you win the contract, but it will cost you." What would you do? Laugh? Walk out? Or lean a little closer? Leave a comment and tell me, because today's story is about a man who asked that question. And he found someone who leaned closer. Not once, twice. This is the story of Victor Lustig, con artist, gentleman swindler, and one of the most audacious frauds in history. A man who looked at one of the most famous landmarks in the world and thought, "I wonder if anyone would buy that." Spoiler: someone did. But before we get to the tower, let me paint you a picture. Paris, summer of 1925. The streets smell of roasted chestnuts and freshly baked bread. Jazz plays in crowded cafes. Women in flapper dresses dance until dawn. The Eiffel Tower stands tall over the city, but it is not the beloved icon we know today. It is old, rusty, expensive to maintain. Some officials have quietly suggested demolishing it. The idea never goes anywhere. But Victor Lustig does not need ideas to go anywhere. He just needs someone to believe they might.
But first, we need to understand the man. Victor Lustig was born in 1890 in what is now the Czech Republic. His real name? No one knows for sure. He used so many aliases that even the FBI, years later, could not agree on his true identity. Some said Budapest, others said Vienna. He himself claimed different origins depending on who was paying. What we do know is that he was smart, charming, and completely unburdened by a conscience. He studied languages. He spoke at least 5 fluently. He studied people. He could read a mark, spot greed, vanity, and insecurity before the mark even opened his mouth. His first major con involved a transatlantic ocean liner. Here is the scene: a luxury cruise ship somewhere between Europe and New York. Lustig notices a wealthy passenger, a man with too much money and too little skepticism. Over dinner, Lustig mentions that he has invented a machine that can print $100 bills. Real ones, not counterfeit. The machine simply replicates the government's ink and paper. The passenger is skeptical, so Lustig gives him a demonstration. He feeds a single bill into a polished wooden box. He turns a crank. He waits. Then, from a secret compartment, he pulls out 2 perfect $100 bills. The passenger is stunned. "How much?" he asks. Lustig names his price, thousands of dollars. The passenger pays, they shake hands. And then, before the ship reaches New York, Lustig quietly disappears. He leaves behind the wooden box. Inside, the passenger finds nothing but rolls of blank paper. The machine never worked. The demonstration was a trick. Lustig had simply hidden the second bill inside the box and pretended the machine had printed it. But the passenger was too blinded by greed to ask how it worked. That was Lustig's genius. He did not steal from the careful. He stole from the greedy. And the greedy never go to the police. He pulled this con several times, never got caught. But he also knew that even the best scams could not last forever. He needed something bigger, something legendary. Then he read a newspaper article about the Eiffel Tower. The tower was decaying. Paint was peeling, iron was rusting. Some officials had suggested demolishing it. The suggestion was quickly dismissed, but Victor Lustig did not care about facts. He cared about what people could be convinced to believe. So he staged a production. He created a fake identity as a government official. He printed forged documents on official-looking stationery. He rented a luxury apartment in Paris. He hired a secretary. He sent letters to the wealthiest scrap metal dealers in France.
The letters said, "The French government is planning to demolish the Eiffel Tower. The scrap metal will be sold to the highest bidder. Secrecy is essential. Come to this address." 6 dealers showed up. Picture this: a dimly lit room, a dark suit, perfect French. Lustig explains that the tower is too expensive to maintain, that the government has decided to sell it quietly to avoid public outrage, that the chosen dealer will need to pay a deposit, a bribe, really, to secure the contract. Then he takes them on a tour of the tower. He points at the rust, the peeling paint, the sagging iron. He makes the most famous landmark in Paris look like a liability. One dealer, a man named André Poisson, walks right into the trap. He is eager, nervous. He wants to impress the government. He hands over a briefcase filled with cash. Lustig takes the money, shakes his hand, and vanishes. He does not even run. He simply gets on a train to Vienna, counting the bills as the French countryside rolls past his window. And Poisson? He never goes to the police. Why would he? He paid a bribe. Reporting the crime would mean admitting that he tried to cheat the system. He stays quiet. So Victor Lustig does something unthinkable. He goes back to Paris to sell the Eiffel Tower again. This time, he knows the scam works. He knows the victims will not talk. So he gathers new dealers, rents a new apartment, prints new stationery, and starts over.
The second buyer is not as naive. He asks more questions. He wants more proof. Lustig panics and leaves town quickly without collecting the money. But here is the strangest part. Even after 2 attempts, even after the second deal falls apart, no one goes to the police. No one reports the crime. The French government never finds out that someone tried to sell their national landmark. Not for years. That is the beauty of Victor Lustig. He did not just fool people. He fooled them into keeping quiet about it. Victor Lustig did not carry a gun. He did not pick locks. He did not crack safes. He just talked, and people believed him. That was his superpower, and his curse. So what happened next? How did the man who sold the Eiffel Tower finally get caught? And why did his last con involve something far stranger than metal and money? We will get to that in the next part of this story, because the tale of Victor Lustig does not end in Paris. It ends in America, inside the most famous prison in the world, with a mystery that has never been solved. But first, let me ask you something. What would you do if someone offered you the deal of a lifetime? Would you check the facts?
Would you ask for proof? Or would you reach for your wallet before your brain caught up? Leave a comment and tell me. Because Andre Poisson reached for his wallet, and Victor Lustig was counting on it.
So Victor Lustig escaped Paris with a briefcase full of cash and a story that would make him a legend. 2 briefcases, actually. He sold the Eiffel Tower twice. One sale worked, one did not. But both times, he walked away free. You would think that would be enough for any con artist. Most fraudsters would retire after a score like that. They would buy a villa somewhere warm, change their name, disappear. But Victor Lustig was not most fraudsters. He once told a friend, "A gentleman never cheats those who do not deserve to be cheated. Greed is the best invitation." He did not want money. Not really. He wanted the game, the thrill, the moment when a mark looks at you with complete trust and you know that in 5 seconds, you are going to break it. So he kept going. After Paris, Lustig traveled across Europe. He pulled small cons, card games, fake investments. None were as spectacular as the tower, but they kept him sharp. Then, in the early 1930s, he crossed the Atlantic. America was in the middle of the Great Depression. Millions were out of work. Banks were failing. Desperation was everywhere. And desperation, Victor Lustig knew, was the best business partner a con artist could have. He arrived in New York with a new name and a new plan. He called himself Count Victor Lustig. The title was fake, of course, but it sounded impressive. It opened doors.
Here is where the story takes a darker turn. Not violent, not bloody, but darker in a different way. Lustig discovered a new scam. He called it the money box. Same idea as the machine on the ocean liner, but simpler. A small wooden box with dials and brass fittings. It looked like something from a Victorian laboratory. He would sell the box for thousands of dollars. He would demonstrate it using hidden bills, and then leave it with the mark. By the time the mark realized the box was just wood and paint, Lustig was already in another city. He sold these boxes all across the United States, dozens of them, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But here is the thing about con artists. Eventually, they get greedy. And greed makes them sloppy. In 1935, Lustig made a mistake. He sold a money box to a woman in New York. She was not wealthy. She had saved for years. She had borrowed from relatives. She had put everything into that wooden box. When she realized it was worthless, she did not stay quiet. The Paris dealers had stayed quiet because they had paid bribes. They had something to hide. This woman had nothing to hide. She went to the police. The FBI had been watching Lustig for years. They had files on him. They knew his aliases, his methods, his favorite cities. But they could never catch him. He was too careful. Now, they had a witness, a victim willing to testify. The hunt began in earnest.
Agents tracked him across the country: Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami. They interviewed his girlfriends. They followed his money. They raided his apartments. Every time, he was one step ahead. Lustig changed identities like other men changed shirts. He traveled under at least 40 different names. He had safe houses in 3 countries. He carried counterfeit passports. Then, in 1935, they got lucky. Lustig had a weakness: women. He liked the company of women, and he liked to talk. One of his girlfriends, a woman named Gertrude, grew tired of his lies. She tipped off the FBI about his whereabouts. On a warm evening in New York, agents surrounded his apartment. They knocked on the door. He opened it, smiling, as if he had been expecting them. "Ah, gentlemen," he said, "I was wondering when you would arrive." They arrested him for counterfeiting, not for selling the Eiffel Tower, not for the money boxes, for making fake money. A small charge, a minor crime compared to his greatest hits. But it was enough. The trial was brief. The verdict was guilty. The sentence was 15 years. Victor Lustig was sent to Alcatraz. Let me say that again. Alcatraz, the most famous federal prison in American history. The Rock, the place where they sent criminals who could not be controlled anywhere else.
Lustig arrived in 1935. He was 45 years old. He was not a violent man. He had never carried a gun. He had never hurt anyone. But there he was, locked inside a concrete cell on an island in San Francisco Bay, surrounded by murderers and bank robbers. And here is where the story takes its strangest turn. Lustig did not stop being a con artist just because he was in prison. He simply found new marks. The guards, the other inmates. He organized a prison lottery. He sold tickets to inmates, promising a prize. The prize was cigarettes. The tickets were worthless. But the inmates admired his nerve. He befriended the guards. He told them stories about his adventures. They laughed. They brought him extra food. They looked the other way. But not the door of his cell. Not yet. In 1937, 2 years into his sentence, Lustig became seriously ill. Stomach pain, weight loss, trouble breathing. The prison doctor examined him. Pneumonia, possibly something worse. He was transferred to the prison hospital in San Francisco. On March 9th, 1937, Victor Lustig was pronounced dead. Pneumonia. His body was buried in a pauper's grave. No family, no ceremony, no headstone. Case closed. The man who sold the Eiffel Tower was gone. But here is the thing about con artists. They lie, even about death. In the years that followed, rumors began to surface. A man matching Lustig's description was seen in Chicago, then Kansas City, then New Orleans. A new name, new scams. The FBI investigated. They exhumed the grave. They examined the body. The dental records did not match. The fingerprints did not match. The corpse in that pauper's grave was not Victor Lustig. No one knows who it was. A homeless man? A patient who died at the hospital? Someone whose identity Lustig had stolen one last time. The great con artist had faked his own death from inside an Alcatraz hospital bed. No one knows how. No one knows who helped him. No one knows where he went. But the FBI kept looking for years. They never found him. Victor Lustig once said, "The easiest person to fool is the one who believes he cannot be fooled." He fooled the doctors. He fooled the guards. He fooled the FBI. And if he really walked out of that hospital and lived the rest of his life in freedom, then he pulled off the greatest con of his career. Not the Eiffel Tower, not the money boxes, not the prison lottery. His own death.
So, Victor Lustig
is dead. Or maybe not. The FBI exhumed a grave and found the wrong body. The man who sold the Eiffel Tower may have walked out of an Alcatraz hospital bed and into thin air. That is where most versions of this story end, with a mystery, a question mark, a con artist who vanished so completely that even the federal government could not find him. But here is the thing about mysteries. People do not like them. They want answers. Even wrong answers are better than no answers. So over the years, several theories have emerged about what really happened to Victor Lustig. Some are believable, some are ridiculous. And one of them is so strange that it might actually be true. Before we go through them, I want you to picture something. A cramped FBI storage room in Washington. Boxes stacked to the ceiling. Yellowed paper. Dust. And somewhere in those boxes, a file labeled Lustig Victor. Inside, photographs, fingerprints, witness statements, and a single blank space where his final chapter should be written. That blank space is where these theories live. Let me walk you through them.
Theory number 1. He died in Alcatraz. The simplest explanation is also the most boring. Lustig really did die in that hospital bed. The body in the grave was his. The FBI made a mistake with the dental records, or the fingerprints were smudged, or someone mixed up the files. It happens, especially in the 1930s, when records were kept on paper and shipped in boxes across the country. But there are problems with this theory. First, the FBI did not just rely on one piece of evidence. They checked dental records, they checked fingerprints, they checked photographs. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. The body was not Lustig's. Second, multiple witnesses reported seeing him after 1937. A bartender in Chicago, a card dealer in New Orleans, a woman in Kansas City who swore she had dinner with him in 1941. Could all of them be wrong? Maybe, but it seems unlikely. Theory number 2. He escaped and lived quietly. This is the most popular version. Lustig bribed a guard, or he bribed a nurse, or he faked his symptoms so convincingly that no one bothered to check his identity. He walked out of the hospital, took a ferry to San Francisco, and disappeared into the crowds. From there, he could have gone anywhere. South America, Europe, a small town in the American Midwest where no one asked questions. Supporters of this theory point to one piece of evidence. In 1938, a man matching Lustig's description opened a small antique shop in St. Louis. He sold old furniture. He restored paintings. He never drew attention to himself. The shop closed in 1942. The owner disappeared. No forwarding address, no records, nothing. Was it Lustig? No one knows. But the timeline fits. Theory number 3. He worked for the government. This is the strangest theory, but it will not go away. According to this version, Victor Lustig was not just a con artist. He was an asset. The FBI, or the OSS, the precursor to the CIA, recruited him in exchange for his freedom. Think about it. A man who could forge any document. A man who could adopt any identity. A man who could talk his way past any guard. In the years leading up to World War II, that kind of skill would have been invaluable. The theory suggests that Lustig faked his death with government help, worked on classified operations during the war, and then retired under a new identity. There is no proof, but there is also no proof against it.
and the FBI files on Lustig remain heavily redacted. Pages blacked out, names removed, as if someone does not want us to know the whole story.
Theory number 4. He was recaptured and buried in secret. This is the darkest theory. The FBI did find Lustig. They just never told anyone. Think about it. The man had embarrassed the Bureau for years. He had sold the Eiffel Tower. He had faked his own death. He had made fools of federal agents. If they caught him, they could not let the public know. Imagine the headlines. Man who sold Eiffel Tower arrested again. It would have been a humiliation. So maybe they did catch him. Quietly. In a hotel room in Chicago. Or a train station in Denver. And maybe they did not put him on trial. Maybe they sent him to a different prison. A secret one. There is no evidence for this theory. None. But there is also no evidence against it. That is what makes it so unsettling.
4 theories. 4 different versions of the truth. One says he died. One says he escaped. One says he worked for the government. One says he was recaptured. But only one of them explains the strangest detail of all. The detail that no one talks about. The money. When Lustig was arrested in 1935, the FBI seized his assets. Bank accounts, safety deposit boxes, cash. The total was much smaller than anyone expected. Thousands of dollars, not millions. For a man who had sold the Eiffel Tower twice, who had swindled dozens of wealthy victims, who had operated for decades, he should have been rich. He was not. So where did the money go? He did not spend it on luxuries. He lived in hotels, wore nice suits, but nothing extravagant. He did not give it to family. He had no known relatives. The money simply vanished, just like he did. Some researchers believe that Lustig hid his wealth before he was arrested, buried it, or gave it to someone he trusted, or converted it into assets that could not be traced. The FBI spent years looking for that money. They never found it. And here is the question that no one has answered. If Lustig really died in that hospital bed, why did the money never surface? If he escaped, why did he never touch it? If he worked for the government, was the money their payment to him?
The answer, whatever it is hidden in that file. The one with the redacted pages. The one that someone does not want us to read. So here is the question that has haunted researchers for almost a century. Was Victor Lustig a genius who escaped with a fortune? A broken man who died in poverty? A secret agent who traded his skills for freedom? Or something else entirely? We will get to that in the final part of this story, because the answer, whatever it is, tells us something important about con artists, about why we believe them, and about why, even when we know we are being fooled, we sometimes choose to keep believing anyway. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever believed something because you wanted it to be true? Not because the evidence was strong, not because the logic was sound, just because the story was better than the truth? Leave a comment and tell me about it. Because Victor Lustig understood something that most people never learn. The best lies are not the ones that sound true. They are the ones that people want to believe. And the biggest con of all, that is not the one played by the criminal. So here we are. 4 theories, 1 mystery, and a man who may have died in prison, escaped to freedom, worked for the government, or been buried in a secret grave. After almost a century, you might expect a definitive answer. You might expect me to tell you what really happened to Victor Lustig. I cannot. No one can. The FBI files are still redacted. The witnesses are all dead. The money was never found. The body in the grave was never identified. Victor Lustig took his secrets with him, wherever he went. Before we go further, I want you to picture something. An old man in a rocking chair on a porch somewhere. Not a nursing home, not a city, a small town. The kind of place where no one asks questions. He is very old now. His hands shake. His eyes are pale. He does not have photographs on the wall, no letters on the table. Nothing that tells you who he is. But he is smiling. Is that Victor Lustig? Probably not. But it could be. And that is the point. Here's the thing about stories like this. Sometimes the truth is not the point. Sometimes the point is what the story tells us about ourselves. Think about it. Why are you still watching? Why do we care about a con artist who died or did not die almost 100 years ago? Because Victor Lustig was not just a criminal. He was a mirror.
He showed us something we do not like to admit, that we want to believe, that we want the deal to be real, that we want the magic box to work, that we want to be the one who gets rich while everyone else is left standing on the sidewalk, watching the Eiffel Tower rust. Lustig understood this better than anyone. He once said, "Every man has a price, not in dollars, in dreams." He did not steal from the poor. He stole from the greedy. He did not trick the careful. He tricked the desperate. And that is why his victims never went to the police. Not just because they were embarrassed, but because some part of them still believed the story was true. Some part of them still hoped that the box might work, that the tower might really be for sale, that the deal might still go through if they just waited long enough. That is the real genius of Victor Lustig. He did not just take money. He took something more precious. He took the line between hope and delusion, and he made it blurry. So what is the answer? Did he die in Alcatraz? Escape to South America? Work for the government? Live out his days in a small apartment in St. Louis? Restoring old furniture and smiling at customers who never knew his name? I will tell you what I believe. I believe Victor Lustig died a free man.
Not because the evidence is strong. It is not. Not because I have secret information. I do not. I believe it because it is the better story. And Victor Lustig spent his entire life proving that the better story is the one people choose to believe. He would have wanted it that way. He would have wanted the mystery. He would have wanted the theories. He would have wanted you, sitting here almost 100 years later, wondering what really happened. That was his final con. Not the Eiffel Tower, not the money boxes, not the fake death. The uncertainty itself. He tricked us all into caring, into wondering, into believing that maybe, just maybe, there is still a box of cash buried somewhere, waiting for someone clever enough to find it. There is not.
Probably. But you will keep wondering, just like I will. And that is why Victor Lustig is still winning. So here is my final question for you. What would you have done if you had been in that hotel room in Paris? If a well-dressed man had slid a document across the table and told you that you could buy the Eiffel Tower, would you have laughed? Would you have walked out? Or would you have leaned a little closer? Leave a comment and tell me. Because the difference between being fooled and being wise is not about intelligence. It is about knowing when to walk away.
Victor Lustig never learned that lesson. He kept playing, kept conning, kept believing that the next score would be the one that set him free. And maybe it was. Maybe his greatest con was convincing the world he had disappeared, when really, he had just stopped caring about the game. Or maybe he is still out there, very old, very quiet, living in a small town where no one knows his name, in a rocking chair, on a porch, smiling. But that is a story no one will ever know for sure. And maybe that is exactly how he wanted it. If you want to hear more stories about con artists, mysteries, and the strange things people believe, hit subscribe. There are more secrets hiding in old FBI files, more questions without answers, more stories about people who tried to cheat the world and sometimes succeeded. Until next time, remember what Victor Lustig taught us. The best lies are the ones we want to believe. And the easiest person to fool is yourself.